Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Thanking everybody that's still with us here on tonight's show. As mentioned earlier, got a special guest on the live line. Of course, he's joined us many times in the past. He is a talk show host in his own right, an activist, an attorney, my brother and yours, the number one true fight in America. Warren Ballentine is on the live line with us. What's up, Warren?
What up, Marcus? What's good, brother?
Not a whole lot, man. It's good to have you back in your home here on Legacy Internet Radio. Of course, you're welcome anytime we can get together.
Yes, sir, brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's get right to it, man. There's a lot going on right now in the country, in the world. We're in the end of Black History Month. So let's just kind of start there. Just give me your thoughts real quick on how you feel about Black History Month. Everybody kind of has their own feelings about it. You know, I always kind of lead off by, giving the history of how it started off as Negro History Week, and people talk about, it's the shortest month, which is kind of flawed logic, in my opinion, but I want to know what you think. So what's your thoughts on Black History Month?
Well, I'm glad it exists. I think it's something that we definitely need to remind us that we should be proud of who we are and what we come from. The day thing, whether it's the shortest month or the longest month, that's not really the issue. The issue is, do we celebrate each other? Do we celebrate our history? And are we still trying to make the kind of history that our ancestors made before us? I mean, that's really what Black history should be about. Are we creating something that our kids can look back on and say, hey, my parents' generation did this to make this generation a better generation? Like we can look back at the Civil Rights Movement or the Marcus Garvey area, or even back to the Reconstruction Reconstruction time after slavery, and what blacks were able to accomplish and get done to set up what we have today, which really isn't that much, but we wouldn't even have this if they hadn't laid the foundation.
Right. No, I agree. I definitely agree. With it being Black History Month, of course, right here on Ain't No Half Step on Marcus J, I always make the point of saying that every single month is Black History Month, and we always do a moment in history, a moment in Black history at every stage, on every show we do. So I 100% agree with you on how we set our own legacy based upon how we perform in life and how we take care of one another, which leads me to one of the big topics that I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, and that's, of course, this Marvel/Disney movie, Black Panther. Many of our people are very, very excited about it, and obviously more than our people are very, very excited about it. I think they're in the $600 or $700 million gross worldwide as of this airing right now, and I'm pretty sure they're going to get a whole lot more. I had some mixed feelings about us in the early stages before the movie came out. Let me just lay that out. My listeners are familiar with how I kind of felt about it, and I still somewhat feel this way. But I want to get your thoughts on what I'm about to share, as well as your thoughts on the movie. But, watching us just get so excited and so extra with it just kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way with the clothes and the buying of the tickets 6 months ago and all of that kind of stuff. I realized that we need things to look forward to. But when I watch how we can be really, really selective about what we throw our all behind, and, people that we know don't get the kind of support that this movie is giving. You know what I'm saying? And so I got a little bit grumpy about that. I came out of it once I actually saw the movie, and I found it to be outstanding. But what's your thoughts on that, Warren?
Well, I kind of felt the way you felt, but I also stepped back and kind of understood that, for us as a people, we are more of a visual people. And see, for them to be able to visually see something and to think that they were doing their part to support black artists, I think this is why people were doing what they were doing. Now, fortunately, the movie was fantastic. I mean, from all the messaging in it to, the characters, to the fact that it was no cussing, to the empowerment of black women. It was just fantastic all the way around, to the beauty of black women with, no fake hair, no fake nothing, just those sisters looking gorgeous on big screen, to the technology that they used, and the young woman being over all that technology to give young girls like you and I have the same kind of inspiration to want to do something like that. So all that was fantastic. My only issue with the whole Black Panther thing is people need to know what this is really from, because we did have Wakanda at one point on this earth. It was Timbuktu. It was Mala.
Right.
We the Amazons, the guards who were guarding T'Challa, those women actually did exist. Those were the Amazons. This is where Wonder Woman came from. So, I just want people to understand the background of it and understand that this has more reality in it than people know that they got in it. And that, I hope on the next one that, the director will take the opportunity to hire black people to be in not just on front of the camera, but behind the scenes, who are, developing costumes, who are creating sets, who are doing, construction sites and everything else. Because, right now, Disney and Marvel, they're the ones who's making this $700 million. Now, this movie is like Obama for me in this sense, though. This movie was necessary because it showed America that you can put a predominantly black cast out here and break numbers at the theater. But it also showed America that we are so much more than gangs, thugs, and violence. When you look and see, that's who we really are. T'Challa, the king, is who we are. We come from that. And so I think this movie is helping waking up a lot of other people who may not have known the true history of who we are, but they're looking now, even though it was based on a comic book, they're looking now to find out more information about black people. And maybe, to be honest with you, the deeper message in this is that maybe this is why black people are hated all over the world, because we were the first. We did have this technology. We did have this understanding. And once we shared it with everybody else in the world, they went nuts and they started killing each other. And maybe that's where the hate comes from for black people all over this world.
That's an outstanding point, and I was going to ask you about that, because you got a lot of folks who made a concerted effort to place negativity on the film. I think 97% approval rating for this film is unprecedented, certainly for a comic book movie. But you had a very small but vocal lobby of non-black folks who wanted to make a point of putting negativity on this film, saying things like there were no gay characters, there were barely any white characters. We know that our images, as you kind of laid out a few minutes ago, have had some questionable representation in some movies. So when we have a movie like this, it does lend to a lot of the excitement that we had. But what do you say to the people from the LGBTQ community and the white community who didn't feel that their representation was either there, present, or large enough? What do you say to them?
Well, to my white brothers and sisters, I would just tell them this. I mean, how dare us make a movie that's a majority black movie? What would we say if we saw a majority white movie in the theater? We would be protesting like the NAACP, and I'm being, funny here,
Obviously.
because the reality of it is that every movie is an all-white movie. So we're underrepresented in every other facet of the art. So why would you get mad because we get one thing? I mean, you're mad because our thing wasn't just one thing; it was the best thing. It broke records, and it's still breaking records, and it was fantastic. And I understand you being mad. I mean, it's the same reason why white women, they talk bad about black women, but they inject their lips to get full of lips like black women. They sit in the sun and look like black women. They get burnt on the skin to get the hue of black people. They inject their butts to get booties like black women. They've been wearing extensions long before black women were wearing extensions. So, I mean, it's for my white brothers and sisters, please, you guys need to go in a corner and sit down. You need a timeout. And for the LGBTQ community, all I would say is this. Look, I support everybody, but you can't force somebody to put something in a movie that wasn't even in the original comic book. And if you really know your history and understand what was going on in the time of Timbuktu, which is Wakanda, you didn't have homosexuality then. It wasn't viewed as that. So it wouldn't even make sense to put somebody in there who's a LGBTQ person in the movie per se. Now, once you get into the Avengers and everything else, I'm sure you can add that in there. But when you're doing the background story, because that's what this movie was. It was the background story for the character of Black Panther, who's going to be in the next Avengers movie. Just like Wonder Woman's story was the backstory of Wonder Woman, who ended up in the Avengers movie. So we got to look at it for what it really is. It wasn't a movie per se about the Avengers or anything else. It was just telling the backstory of a character who's going to be part of the next movie.
Yeah, you got it. Ain't no half step on Marcus J. Live from the Dan Legacy Internet Radio. We're talking to our brother, number one true fighter in America, our brother Warren Ballentine. Warren, let's transition a little bit, come out of Black Panther and talk about what's going on in the news right now. Of course, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, a young man walked into a school with the AR-15 weapon and shot up the school, killing 14 students and 3 adults. As we get more and more information about the incident, we have learned that this guy was on the radar of the FBI, but they didn't officially or appropriately, I should say, investigate him. That they may have thwarted his plan had they done that. Then, if you fast forward to the actual incident, we're learning that there was at least one, by some reports, up to 4 different law enforcement officers who found themselves outside of the school when they could have been inside and maybe limiting the loss of life. And then lastly, I know you call them 44.9, the President of the United States has suggested that if we arm teachers, we may not have these kinds of incidences continue. That's kind of the setup. Kind of jump in wherever you want to jump in on that one, and let's go back and forth a little bit.
Well, when it comes to the teachers, I mean, if you got 4 trained sheriffs who was afraid to run in that school because of the gunshot, do you think a teacher really going to jump out there like that? I mean, this is almost laughable that somebody would even make this suggestion, but this shows the idiocy of this president that we have in the White House. That's why I call him 44.9, because his idea is to put 700,000 more guns in schools. And he thinks that's going to make it safer. That's stupidity at its finest. Now, if you really want to fix this gun problem in this country, I mean, to me, it's very simple. You raise the age to 25 to be able to purchase a gun, no matter whether it's a rifle or any other kind of gun, because, you can't rent a car till you're 25 because you don't get your frontal lobe until you're 25 years old. So I would do that. Then the second thing I would do is for these schools, I mean, you don't have these shootings in urban settings, and the reason why is because there's metal detectors in the school. There are metal detectors, and there's at least 3 resource officers in every one of these schools. And because you have the metal detectors, they detect whether a gun or a knife or anything else is coming in the building. And if you did that in schools all across this country, nobody would be able to walk in there without being detected immediately to be able to pull a fire alarm and shoot everybody and everything else. And then lastly, with the FBI and the police and everything else, it's easy to blame the police. It's easy to blame the FBI. But the reality of it is that he had not committed any law. He hadn't broken any law, And you can't arrest somebody who hasn't broken a law. I mean, I know people are looking at it, he had this many contacts with the sheriff's department in the past, and somebody called the FBI, and they dropped the ball. Well, even if they went and investigated him, he hadn't broken the law. If he hadn't broken the law, they couldn't have arrested him anyway. I mean, he brought the guns legally. I mean, really, the bigger question to me is the family that he was living with. How do you let somebody you don't know come in your house with 5 to 9 guns when you got kids in there and a wife in there? That's just ridiculous to me that nobody asked the question, why do you need so many guns? But the question was not asked because the little boy, he was set to inherit almost $1 million. And right now, those parents who he was staying with, they petitioned the court to be the overseer of his money. And it's close to $1 million. So this was about money, them letting him in that house, and that's why they weren't questioning, why in the world did you need all these guns?
Yeah, that's crazy. We had a teacher on the show earlier tonight, Warren. He's a teacher from Trenton, New Jersey, old high school friend of mine, black man teacher who loves his children, who said very, very strongly that he disagrees with putting weapons in the schools. And it's crazy because a lot of times we'll have these discussions on the legislative level in houses of Congress and the Senate, and we're making decisions to affect the lives of people, but we never even ask them what they think. We have polls and things of that sort. The voice of the people is missing. And I haven't heard anybody ask the teachers what they think about them being allowed to carry their weapons in schools. I know a lot of teachers. I mean, I just know a lot of teachers, and I have not spoken to one of them, not one, who said that they think that it would be a good idea for them to be carrying their weapons in the schools. And the crazy part about it is trained officers, as you alluded to, were fearful of going in. But let's just say they weren't. there's also statistics that say trained officers aren't always successful when firing their weapons. So you mean to tell me if trained officers are not always successful in firing their weapons, we're going to put it in the hands of teachers whose ultimate job it is to teach, and their secondary job, if we're to keep with this twisted logic, is to fire a weapon on a assailant in a school. It's so asinine that it doesn't even make any sense. It makes no sense at all.
Well, it makes sense in the mind of Agent Orange. It makes sense in his head.
Yeah, how about that? You know, the other piece of this that I wanted to get into you, and this part kind of fired me up. I don't know if you've heard about this, but NRA enthusiasts and supporters have been giving death threats to some of the kids who are seeking to have some sort of ban for these automatic weapons. There's one kid in particular by the name of David Hogg, where you've got a lot of these conspiracy theorists are saying that he's a paid crisis actor who has found his way in front of the cameras down there in Florida because that's what the left does. Have you heard any of these things? Do you have any thoughts on, one, crisis actors, and two, the NRA having death threats towards the kids who are petitioning or lobbying, rather, to have these bans on these rifles, these assault rifles?
Well, I heard the story about David Hogg, and that's just, those are internet trolls. And to be honest with you, I don't like the fact that the NRA is threatening this young man, but I think it's a good thing that they are threatening him, because this raises this to a higher level. And for those of us who really want gun control and gun change, this will get people who were sitting on the fence off the fence about this issue, because they can clearly see that this is a teenage boy who was doing nothing more than stating his opinion of what he saw and how he felt that day. And he's being threatened by these individuals in the NRA simply because he's telling the truth. I think this actually helped David Hogg and those who want gun control way more than it helps the NRA. So while it's unfortunate that they're doing this, and I have a problem with it as a parent, but as an activist, I see how this can turn into something that is positive for people who really want gun control.
I got you. NCAA Marcus J, live from the Dan Legacy Internet Radio. Last thing I want to get into in the limited time that we have left, Warren, and I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, so if you don't know what's going on with the mic, but if you can correct that for me. But last thing I want to get into is the NCAA. There's a lot of talk these days about a lot of these schools and some of the big-name coaches in particular getting busted because they're essentially paying these kids to come to their schools. What's your thoughts on that, one? And two, here's an analogy that I'll lay out for you. I went to school for journalism, Virginia Union University. And if I was someone that was considered a prodigy at the time, they would have had no problem, even if I was on scholarship, which I wasn't. Shout out to Moms and Pops J for paying for that. But if I was on scholarship, nobody would have had a problem if some big-name media conglomerate came and started sponsoring me while I was still in college. Obviously, we know it doesn't work that way with academic/athletics in schools. So one, comment on what's going on, and two, comment on what you think would be fair with regards to paying these kids.
Well, when it comes to paying the kids, you almost have to do it like the Olympic standard, because, see, the schools aren't going to pay for it. So what you would do is, if you're a kid and a local car dealership want to give you $10,000 to put your face on their billboard, you get the $10,000 and it's your money. Do with it what you want. If a shoe company wanted you to wear their shoes, as long as it fit into the criteria of the school. So if Nike wanted you to wear their shoes and the school was a Nike shoe, if they wanted to pay you to wear their shoes and advertise for them, then you should be able to do it. You would do it just like you do the Olympic format, as far as I'm concerned, as far as paying the kids, because the schools will never pay them themselves. And then as far as what's happening, this shouldn't be no surprise to anybody. I mean, these coaches, look, they're making Nick Saban makes $8 million a year. Coach K makes $7 million a year. Of course, they need the best kids to come to their school. So, of course, boosters and everybody else are paying these kids to come to the school. Now, what usually happens, though, is that you have an agent who has a runner who gets these kids when they're 13, 14 years old in AAU ball, and they make deals along the way to get these kids into these particular universities. The quid pro quo is, once they come to the university, when they get out, they're guaranteed to be represented by this agent, because the coach is going to make sure of that. And in return, what the agent does is hook the coach up with the shoe company for a big deal. This is why Rick Pitino got fired, because he was getting money from the shoe company who was paying the kid's family, because the kid's family said, well, hey, if you're getting money, we want money too. This is what's going on in Arizona. Hey, you want my son to come here. Everybody's making money. I want my son to make some money too. You know, usually if you got 10, one and done, maybe 2 of the parents really understand the game. The other 8 don't even have a clue, and so they don't even ask for any money. But the other 2, they know what's going on, and they know their kids are being pimped, and so they ask for some of the money. This is why they have such a problem with LeVar Ball, because LeVar Ball peaked game, took his kids out of the AAU circuit, created his own thing, and then represented them on every step and every level of the way, including their recruitment into college in the NCAA. And this is why they get the problem with him. It ain't even that he's talking loud and just saying stuff that they feel uncomfortable with. It's the fact that he's disrupted the money flow and how everything goes. And because he's done that, they hope other people won't catch on and do the same thing, so they're trying to vilify him by being a big mouth and a loud mouth. But the reality of it is he's brilliant, because he peeped game and said, I'm not going to let you pimp my kids. If anybody going to make money off my kids, it's going to be my kids and their family, not somebody we don't know. So I got much more respect for LeVar Ball.
I got respect for him too. He could turn it down a little bit. You don't get to come for Magic Johnson and others, but I'm with you. I'm with you, man. He's trying to mess up the matrix, and when you mess up the matrix, you become a problem. And obviously, we've seen that through history, particularly with our black males, many of whom we all look up to and revere that aren't here anymore. Usually they're not here anymore. They get taken out. Oftentimes by our own United States government, because they mess up the matrix. So in a smaller kind of way, that's exactly what LeVar Ball is doing as well. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Warren, I appreciate it, brother. That's it. Why don't you give the Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. listeners a sneak peek into how they can find you and how they can rock with you?
Hey, man, they can find me on Twitter at TruthFighter1, at TruthFighter1. Or you can find me on Facebook. The best way is Shut 'Em Down. That's the name of the page, Shut 'Em Down on Facebook. And it's just Shut, S-H-U-T, then M-E-M, down. You can join us over there. Or on Periscope, you can watch the show and hear the show every day from 10 to noon. You can find me under TruthFighter1 on Periscope. And just keep doing what you're doing, brother. I love what you're doing. Proud of you, brother.
Appreciate that, man. I'm proud of you as well. Been watching and following and working with you for a long time, and I appreciate the time you gave us today. Hold the line for just a moment. Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J. live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Taking a break. Be back with more to show y'all. Stay with us.